Today's episode of Outside the Rack is brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of the Gymaware. In today's world of strength and conditioning, data collections become the utmost of importance, and that's exactly where Gymaware separates itself from the competition. Because when we're sitting there and looking to collect data, what data are you actually collecting? And are the numbers you're looking at fitting into the exercises that you're utilizing? And even more so, are they going to answer the questions that you're looking for? Looking at different ways that you are moving the barbell through peak and mean, both velocity and power, is really what separates Gymaware from the competition. Being able to understand what your ballistic exercises are doing separate to what your strength exercises are doing really allows you to program at a much more specific level for your athletes. So hop on over to kinetic.com.au to see what Evan and his team have in store for you today. The world of strength and conditioning is filled with some fantastic practitioners that are always searching for more. But more what? What are strength and conditioning coaches searching for to better their ability to prepare their athletes? Well, what about cutting-edge information, or a place where you can find different opinions from forward-thinking coaches on what you're doing, how you're doing, and try to get feedback to be better for your athletes? Or what about a place where you'll find like-minded coaches that can provide solid coaching advice and career development for you as you progress through your career as a strength and conditioning professional? Well, this is exactly why we built the Strength Coach Network. You'll have access to exclusive monthly content on top of the sensationally active forum that we have, where you can communicate with coaches all over the world to find those answers that you're looking for to help you be a better practitioner for your athletes. So make sure you hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPs, that's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS, and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 19th episode of Outside the Rack, brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of Gymaware. In this show, we're going to try to dive a little deeper into the minds of the top practitioners in the world of sport performance to learn a little bit more about who they are and how they got where they are today. Today, we are joined by the Vice President of Performance and Education at PLAE, Ron McKeefery. Mac, thanks for being with us, brother.
What's up, buddy? Appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, man, stoked for this. Always great to chop it up with Coach Mac. But before we get started, man, who is Ron McKeefery?
Well, it depends on who you would ask, I suppose. But you know, the way that I define myself is, first and foremost, I'm a husband. I'm a father. I've been married to my wife for over 20 years now. I have 4 kids that all 4 have been adopted internationally, and then from there, I try to be somebody that makes a difference in people's lives, and that to me is coaching, is leading people on a journey. And so that's why I identify myself as a coach on this path.
I dig it, man, and definitely somebody who's made an impact on a lot of coaches' lives.
Well, I think in this field, we're a product of the people that we've surrounded ourselves with. And I was very fortunate to have teachers that poured into me, and that was important. It was important to me to give back to people, especially people that give me their time or their attention. But more importantly, we live in a time where we're still in the first 100 years of the profession, really. And so if you could go and you could document any other profession better in the first 100 years, people would want that, right? If medicine or law or finance or whatever. And so we have the ability right now, we all have an obligation to kind of document this time period better, as best we can for the people that are going to follow us.
Yeah, man, no doubt about it. And you've done a lot to help document it and teach and push people to become better, not just the athletes, but also with coaches. So let's get to the first one, because I think it's going to ring a bell with that. If you could for us, man, describe a learning situation that brought about an epiphany in your career.
Yeah, I think, the learning situation that I often talk about is, when a player showed up late and I threw a plate at him for being late, and come to find out the kid had, just lost his paternal grandfather, and somebody that raised them, and it taught me that I could lose a kid, not to confuse passion with emotion, and oftentimes as coaches, we have an emotional response for when we're trying to show and demonstrate passion. But I think for this, and give you something new and different and maybe more applicable to what I'm doing these days, is when I was early in coaching, so I was 22 years old, I became the head strength coach over in NFL Europe. And I don't know how many people are listening to this that are probably older than 22, probably everybody. But to lead an NFL organization at that young was definitely an eye-opener, much less to do it in another country. And what I learned by that was that the world is becoming much, much smaller. And even since then, that's 20-something years ago, the world is becoming much smaller. The borders are shrinking, and the impact that we can make on the world using our skill sets in strength and conditioning and sport might be the only thing that really breaks down borders without any kind of challenges that comes with politics or those types of things. I mean, sport it's kind of a universal truth across the board. And so I know people think that I'm crazy when I say that we have a chance to really make a difference in the world, but you travel. If you've never traveled, I think it's so important to travel outside of the U.S. and see how it's done elsewhere, because I think it opens your eyes to other ways of doing things, but I also think it opens your eyes to just how powerful what we do is around this world.
Yeah, man. And you've been lucky to be able to be not just that NFL Europe stint, but back over to Poland, Australia once or twice.
Yeah.
China once or twice.
In the last couple of months. Yeah. I think I've been very fortunate. I mean, in my job now, that's exactly what I do. It's one of the reasons why I took it was, honestly, I felt like I was called to make a bigger impact than just the four walls of a weight room. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been on the Great Wall of China, and I've been on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and I've been the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland, and the pyramids in Mexico, and all that is really, really cool experiences. But it just as equally as cool is working with athletes in those environments, and really seeing just how common we are in so many different ways. And so it's an important lesson, I think, to come across in your coaching career.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, with all those travels and all the teaching and all the coaches that you've been able to educate and learn from, what is one question that Mac would ask if he knows he's going to get the answer to it, and why would you ask that question?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I've been doing a podcast for over 8 years, and one of the questions I ask in that is, what's your biggest mistake and how you've learned from it? And I think with this, I think people are fairly open with that, but I think going even a step further is maybe what's your biggest regret, your life regret. I think to be a great coach, I think you have to be a great human. I think that's the bottom line. And nobody's gonna work and train for somebody they don't respect. Nobody's gonna work and train for somebody that is two-faced or doesn't live up to the same standards that they preach or whatever it may be. And so I think you have to be a great person. And so learning people's regrets, especially people that are maybe on their deathbed or close to it, and seeing what and how to make the best part of this life for everybody, I think is super powerful, and so to get a legitimate answer about the biggest regrets, I think starts to put together a list for you as a coach, as a person, to try to knock off some of those things before you're on that same bed asking for a regret, wishing you would have done something differently.
Yeah, man. That's it's a Gary Vaynerchuk-like answer. I really like that. What's your biggest regret?
Yeah, Gary would have thrown a few F words in there if you would have answered that, but sure. Yeah.
No, totally. Well, he talks about that, right? As he says, You need to talk with older people because none of them ever talk about like these little things that they regret. It's always bigger things. So understanding like what it's like to be at that age and to be at that part of life is to be able to understand how you can do the rest of it better.
Well, I think the reason why I'm so conscious of that is, again, I became a head strength coach at 21, 22, 23 years old. So I didn't have the luxury of having a bunch of mentors before and seeing it a bunch of different ways. So I had to really reach out to all the leaders of the field in that day, and so I'd reach out to guys like Mike Gentry and Al Johnson and, Ken Meissner and on and on and on. And, I mentioned those names and probably half the people that are listening to this probably never even heard of them, and it's a shame. And I think learning from the people that have walked down the path that you're walking helps you avoid so many of the landmines that pop up. And my reasoning for doing that early was pretty selfish in that I just wanted to be success. I wanted to be a success as fast as I possibly could. And so I was trying to avoid those mistakes to get to, there faster. But as I've gone and as I've aged, and now that I'm one of the old guys in the profession, now it's more about that respect of really, truly learning as much as you can and trying to be that lifelong learner that everybody hopes that they can be.
No doubt about it, man. Yeah. But listen, with all your travels and all the work you're doing to make coaches better and everything that you're doing to drive us forward, there's got to be a time when Mac gets away and gets to come back to neutral a little bit. So what's your escape, brother?
Yeah, it's a good question. And up until I took this job, I would have told you that I didn't have one. Really as I was an idiot just like we all are and wore not taking vacations and things like that as a badge of honor. But I would have told you that I had zero hobbies. That was, the podcast and things like that was kind of my hobby. At this point now, I've even though I am probably, believe it or not, I'm probably 3 times as busy as I was as a coach. I've also gotten smarter because I've really challenged myself to grow as somebody that can manage time and scale myself and those types of things. Now it's, 2 things that are kind of athletic, kind of my form of mindfulness, which is mountain biking and jiu-jitsu. Those 2 things, if you're not present and focused on what you're doing, you're going to get hurt, and so to me, those are really, really powerful things. But then, as you know, because you've asked me to either speak or be at the conference several times in the last number of years, the conference is always over my birthday week, and so what we've done is we've always taken a family vacation during that time, or that weekend anyways. And for me, that's getting completely off the grid. It's being in the mountains where we can't get cell reception, can't watch TV, can't do anything but be there with nature and with your family. And so we usually either go to the Tennessee mountains or the Virginia mountains and completely unplug. And there's no better thing than that. But obviously I miss CVAPs every year, which is the only trade-off that makes me flinch for a second. But once I get to the mountains, I'm pretty happy.
Virginia mountains are only 2 hours away. Just throwing that out.
You know what? Last time we were there, I seriously thought about driving over, just for the day. But I think my wife would have shot me.
Well, let's avoid that. So
that's probably true.
Well, listen, Mac, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no, I'll end that with just saying that I think it's a lesson that you need to learn sooner than later, that you need to have some outlets, some creative outlets for just ways to challenge yourself outside of strength and conditioning. And then you definitely got to have some time where you recenter with your family and yourself. And I think it's super important.
No doubt about it, brother. Mac, As always, brother, great to chop it up. Great to see you, man. So stoked you're doing awesome, and truly appreciate everything you're doing to help us be better, man. Like, I don't think enough people say it, but you're a rock for all of us, homie, and I really do appreciate you.
Likewise, man. I know how much goes into this stuff, and for you to be putting stuff together, especially during the season, it's a testament to yourself and all the hard work that you do. So appreciate you as well, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch real soon, brother.
Likewise.
Yeah, man.